Hey guys, this is a little bit of a longer episode, so if you don't feel like sitting and watching the entire thing, go check the description down below for the timestamps so you can jump around and just watch the players you care about, or if you do feel like watching the entire thing, hang around. And welcome in to the Fantasy 4-Pack Stamps of Approval episode. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago, bringing you guys one of our last shows of the preseason as we gear up for going to 4 shows a week again in the regular season. This show here is, if you are just joining us this season, if you haven't watched our Stamps Approval episode from last year, this is where we tell you guys probably our 3 favorite players each on the whole going into the season. These are ideally difference maker players. These are players that each of us individually are targeting in basically every draft. Format doesn't really matter. We think that these guys are keys to winning your league essentially.
Yeah, these are guys that we just love, and in most of our drafts, we're trying to figure out a way to get them on our team that even if we have to reach a little bit.
Yeah, like one of the guys that I've been talking about, I've been positioning my draft picks in every draft where I have the ability to do that to set myself up to draft him. Because I think that the discount in getting him is worth it in the second round. So like it's that's the idea behind this episode. It's going to give you guys a look behind the curtain into 3 guys that each of us are really high on, that we think have the ability to way outperform their ADP, or if they're already going in the top couple rounds, guys who are going to separate from the pack and really lead you to fantasy Valhalla. Before we get into the show, though, Frankie, if you want to show off our beer, as this is a Beer of the Month episode, also our last Beer of the Month episode before we go to Beer of the Week.
Yeah, I decided to go with the very appropriate Heroes Little Heaven.
What do you think, Vitale? Summer Crusher?
It does say crushable on the can. I thought that was kind of a nice little joke. And also, we're getting into the actual season, boys. We're getting a little piece of heaven.
It's okay.
It's solid. It's definitely not the hoppiness that I hate. I can get through this one, but it still has that, aftertaste that I'm not a huge fan of.
I thought it was a nice little, joke that we have on the show here. And also, again, we're getting into the season, and there's no better time of year.
This is my favorite and also busiest time of year because I'm in like 7 leagues, and everyone's drafting at the same time.
That's great.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's... And we almost get to see live snaps of football. It's going to be wonderful for the extra week we get this year, too. All right, let's do a little bit of news before we dive into the show itself. Light news day for the most part, although there are some big-ticket items on here. Kadarius Toney is expected to be ready for Week 1. Evan Ingram left today's game against the Patriots with a calf injury. Status is unclear for Week 1, although the reports that I saw didn't list it as a serious injury, so he probably just tweaked his calf. Obviously, keep an eye on that if you are drafting, at all over the course of this week until we get further information. But Evan Ingram should be a volume guy at least, if nothing else, at the position. That's kind of what he's been his career so far.
That's if he can catch the football.
Well, no, he gets volume. It's just half of it bricks off his hands.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he doesn't lose that volume this year with the addition of Galladay and Saquon coming back, but that's my big worry with him.
I mean, I think that's reflected in his price. I mean, he's going just ahead of Jared Cook. So, a guy who is also going, just ahead of Jared Cook at this point in redraft after ADP has plummeted. J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, we got clarity on his knee injury today. It is, in fact, a torn ACL and I believe LCL.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
So he is done for the season. Yeah, he will not be coming back. Do not draft him.
Yeah, what I've heard is severe ACL tear. So
yeah, I mean his knee went backwards. So you never like to see that, especially not for a running back, because that's a career ender. Yeah. ACL repairs have gotten a lot better. But
unless you're Willis McGahee, in which case then you have a nice NFL career after that in college.
And it was weird too, because looking back at that play, it was just it looked like a standard just legs wrap up tackle. The defender just going in there to put him on the ground and just happened to hit him just wrong.
Yeah, I mean it sucks. He's he was a talented kid who was looking like he was going to have a pretty solid year, and now it's, does he have a future in the NFL after a hit like that? But
only upside is he's got a lot of time to get ready for next year.
Well, and the fact that those surgeries have gotten better over the years, so knock on wood, he makes a full recovery. Another guy who has knee issues right now, a little bit lower draft stock, but Irv Smith Jr. Is expected to undergo surgery to repair a meniscus injury. At this time, it is not expected to be season-ending, but he's going to miss some time. T.Y. Hilton, undisclosed, expected to be sidelined multiple weeks, also not expected to be season-ending, but this is a bump for Michael Pittman Jr. truthers because he's now clearing away the number one on that team. And then finally, and this is probably the biggest or second biggest news, depending on what you think of the Dobbins news, but Deshaun Watson rumors have been heating up lately. We've seen multiple rumors over the past couple days come out that the Dolphins are the far and away front runners to land Watson. It sounds like all the other teams have pulled out of the bidding, and that the tea leaves seem to be reading that he is going to be heading to South Florida soon. We've seen some reports that have stated that there's actually already a deal in place and that they are just working on finalizing that deal over the coming days. Although those reports are to this point unconfirmed. I've only seen I think one smaller journalist reporting it on Twitter. So not to he's been right about a couple things in this whole Deshaun Watson will he won't he saga so far. So that's why I'm reading it as somewhat potentially truthful, but taking it with a grain of salt because it's NFL trade rumors.
Yeah.
But let's play a little exercise here. Let's play a game and assume that Deshaun Watson, let's say he goes to the Dolphins tomorrow or Tuesday. As of this moment, he isn't suspended. He is currently allowed to play football. Assuming he plays a full season for the Miami Dolphins, where are you guys ranking him and where are you comfortable drafting him?
We were just talking about this right before the show, and surprisingly, I'm the highest on him. I didn't think I would be, but I was going through it. I didn't put him ahead of Mahomes, Allen. I ended up slotting him at the 4 slot. So QB4 for me, just because of the fact that he has amazing arm talent. He'll be going to a system that has great receivers, and like I said, he supplements all that with good, a healthy amount of running. So if he goes in there, QB4, but as far as drafting, for me, I'm taking him in the Brady Rodgers area, like the 6th, 7th. Like I'd be shooting for late 6, early 7 for him, and probably looking to get a guy like a Trey Lance or some late quarterback with some upside in case he ends up getting slapped with the suspension.
Funny you mentioned that because Deshaun Watson and Trey Lance are the quarterbacks that I have rostered in every draft that I've done so far.
Yeah, I'm a little bit less hot on him. I have him, somewhere at the back of the, top 10 quarterbacks, assuming he plays a full season. I don't really know where I would slot him in there. Probably in 7-8 range.
Sure.
And I'm a little bit further back in the draft, and where I'm drafting him, probably I would say round 7-8. So after Rodgers and Brady.
Sure.
Just because he's going to a new system, and it is easier for quarterbacks to do that as opposed to like a wide receiver where you have to gel with the quarterback.
Keep in mind, in this new system he is going there with Will Fuller if he goes to Miami. So
it's I don't know. I'm just not. It's something that doesn't sit right with me with him as far as this whole situation, but I'm cooler on him than you guys.
Sure.
So
go ahead.
No, that's it. That's all I got.
I was gonna say for me, I put him in right at QB4 or I'm sorry QB5. I still take Mahomes, Allen, Murray, and Prescott ahead of him. I think I was going back and forth on if this deal gets done, does he go ahead of Russell Wilson? I think he does for me, just because we know that the Seahawks have been talking about focusing on returning to the running game and reducing their passing volume. And if that happens, I don't think I like Russell Wilson's ceiling as much as I like Dak Prescott's. Yeah. I think they present similar floors, but Miami's got a great receiving core. Deshaun Watson is a fantastic quarterback. I'm not going to speak to his off the field allegations because that's not our place really. But the on the field talent is exemplary. The receivers are exemplary. He's linking up with Will Fuller, who they've made sweet fantasy music before. I think that he has as high a ceiling as anyone in fantasy, while still presenting a fairly safe floor. So I'd be comfortable taking him as the 5th quarterback off boards. That's where I'd be ranking him as well. All right. Well, that'll do it for news. Did you guys, or at least that I saw, did you guys have anything you wanted to bring up before we dive into the show here?
No, I think we hit all the the big ones.
I mean, the other minor big one out there was that Jameis Winston was officially announced as the starter.
It's weird.
I'm thrilled.
QB top 3 season. Here we go.
I am thrilled. I love Jameis Winston.
They have a quarterback playing quarterback in New Orleans and not Taysom Hill.
I hope he goes in there and just kicks ass, so I can rub it in everyone's face who ever doubted Jameis Winston. I can be like, see, I warned you. Like, got new eye, new shoulder, and he went in there and was just lighting. I mean, it was the Jaguars, but he was still lighting up the Jaguars. Like, he looked great. Love it. I love to see it, especially when Michael Thomas comes back. Whew, that's going to be a scary offense.
Yep.
All right, I'll lead us off here with this show. I'm going back for seconds with this one, boys, because I was initially going to when we were planning out our stamps of approval. I was initially going to do Austin Eckler here, but honestly, the hype behind Eckler has pushed him to a point where I'm actually kind of nervous about drafting him. I mean, we just had your work league draft, Frankie, and unfortunately, I had to take him at 8. But like, I've been seeing him start going like earlier and earlier in the first round, like pushing up to like the middle of the first, or the back middle of the first, kind of where I took him. And it's like, I'm not sure I like taking him in that range.
No, I do not.
For a guy who doesn't get almost any work on the ground, so he has to do all through the air.
Hey, he's the wide receiver 3. No, it's fine.
So I subbed him out, and I'm going back for seconds with Mr. Nicholas Chubinski himself. Because for whatever reason, the fantasy community still just does not believe in this man, despite the fact that he just keeps getting better. So last year, obviously, it looked like if you're just a bozo who looks at total stats, it looked like a down year on paper. Only 1,067 yards, 190 rushing attempts, 5.6 per carry is pretty good, I guess. But who cares about that? Also, 12 touchdowns on 190 carries, but I'm sure that's nothing. Oh, wait, he missed 5 games? 4 games with injury, plus a game that he left early because of it. He only got 6 rushing attempts in the game he left. He straight up missed weeks 5 through 8 and still posted over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. This man is insanely good. He might be the best pure runner in the league. He is insanely good at football. I'm talking Derrick Henry level upside, and people are just ignoring it because, oh no, Kareem Hunt's there. Not that. Whatever were we going to do? Except Kareem Hunt only hit 8 more carries than him, despite him missing 5 games. If we just take Nick Chubb's pace and extrapolate it out over the entirety of last season, he gets 78 more carries. 78. He might have hit 20 touchdowns last season at the rate he was scoring touchdowns with 78 more carries.
Fair.
Like, that is insane. He also maintained his inside the 20, inside the 5 pace from 2019 into 2020. Last season, even while missing games, he still had 11 attempts inside the 5, and he turned 5 of those 11 attempts into touchdowns. 50% of the time inside the 5, he's scoring a touchdown. And he still had 35 attempts inside the 20. Clearly, he is their go-to option in the red zone for scoring a touchdown. They will feed it to him first before they give it to Baker. And Baker's the key to all of this, because they aren't going to trust Baker to throw it a ton. I think that's the part that everyone's forgetting about, because they think that this offense behaves differently than it does. This is Ravens but orange. They run a lot. And they don't have Lamar Jackson. So all of those attempts funnel through their running backs. Nick Chubb can still have almost 300 touch upside while still letting Kareem Hunt get his, because that's how much they use the running back position in Cleveland. Like I said, I truly believe that if we see Nick Chubb get a full year, because their offensive line hasn't gotten any worse from last year to this year. Stefanski's had a whole other year to have everyone get used to his to gel in his system, to get better. And we saw the Browns look really good at the end of last year. They were one of the best teams in the AFC. That still sounds weird to say. But they were one of the best teams in the AFC last season. And they clearly have Nick Chubb as a focal point of their offense. I fully believe that if Nick Chubb doesn't catch the injury bug again this season, we're going to see a Derrick Henry-esque season out of him, where he, pushes for the rushing title, where he scores double-digit touchdowns, where he is the lead dog in this dog pound of a Cleveland Browns team, and he's gonna be what drives that team to success or failure, in my opinion. I don't see a world where he finishes lower than if he's fully healthy. I don't see a world where he finishes lower than RB5 or 6, and he has legitimate RB1 upside because of the insane touchdown volume that he's capable of getting. I mean, he's never averaged less than 5 yards per carry. 5.6 last season. I don't get it. I think he's a smash pick for me. He's ranked as the RB8 off boards right now, and I think the only person who gives me pause when I'm sitting there looking at him is if he and Aaron Jones are both on the board, and I'm like, crap, now who do I take? Because Aaron Jones is a top 5 running back also.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and I'm just going to jump ahead of you.
Go for it.
I was going to say the best comp that I can say for him is probably Aaron Jones, who is also getting the disrespect. I mean, he's getting a little bit more respect this year.
Well, I mean, you do it twice in a row, and people have to be like, fine, I guess.
But no, they're both the same thing. I mean, Aaron Jones is a little bit better as far as receiving out of the backfield, which I think which is why he's ranked higher. But
Chubb's receiving volume was low.
They're both high upside guys. They're both guys who I wouldn't mind having on my team, and they're both, honestly, I mean, the focal points of their offense. I mean, as much as we want to say, Rodgers going to throw it to Devontae Adams, I think that they run enough plays in Green Bay where it's kind of the same thing. Well, where now we're looking at Nick Chubb, and they don't have a Devontae Adams on that team. It's the plays are running through him. It's what is he doing, and I think that he's getting pretty much the same amount of disrespect Aaron Jones has gotten over last year. But now Aaron Jones is getting his. I mean, Nick Chubb's not getting his.
Would it shock you if at the end of the season he's just sitting at RB3 where Derrick Henry usually finishes, because the Browns' offensive line is one of the best in football, and Derrick Henry just kind of slips like we kind of expected he might?
Yeah, I think literally, for me and other people who are I love Nick Chubb, and I can go into the draft saying, you saw it today. When I missed out on Zeke and Kamara, I had Derrick Henry sitting in front of me, but I went with Aaron Jones because of the receiving upside. Because when you're in those top few picks, you got to go with a guy that has that receiving volume if you're playing in a non-standard, if you're playing not standard.
Sure. So, but that's also what I was talking about pre-show, where I was saying, this is my love for him and the discount you're getting with him is a big reason why I've been pushing for later picks in drafts, because I can grab him at 8 and then circle around and grab Antonio Gibson in the second round, or grab Saquon Barkley in the second round, or Joe Mixon in the second round, and have 2 smash running backs.
Or you should be able to grab Austin Eckler in the second round. But.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's my first guy that I'm hitting with the golden stamp of approval as the top guy from last year. So I'm putting the golden stamp on Nick Chubb again. I think that he's going to have the season he should have had last year and not be an asterisk stamp, but a full on golden stamp leading you to the fantasy championship.
Fair enough.
Vitaly, what's your first guy here?
Well, I was thinking of going running back to follow up yours and do another running back that I talked about last year. But you know what? You talked about it. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about Mr. Michael Pittman Jr. I am a Pittman truther. I wanted
You're
to be
going way down boards with that one.
Oh, yeah. I am going for a guy. I don't want to just be grabbing a guy who's running off cheap and, let's say he's going to outperform ADP, because he's going to. It's just going to happen. He's prime enough for that second-year breakout. He has, as I spoke about, and I favorite late-round targets, he has elite size. Like you said, he runs a 4.5. He's 6'4", 225. He has that just when you're picturing a perfect receiver and you're not picturing Julio Jones, you're picturing a guy with this kind of build, which is basically the same thing as Julio Jones. He has elite
He's built like Des Bryant.
Yeah, like that's like just the prototypical when you want the X, the guy on your team. Like that's what you want.
He's 2 inches taller than Des and 0.2 seconds faster than, or 0.02 seconds faster than Des.
Yeah. So all these things are just pointing. Just a huge flag should be just going off to everyone. Like, hey, there's a guy in the late round that should be going off. He's got a quarterback that's looking to have a resurgence with a coach that helped him get it almost an MVP season. And the biggest news we talked about, T.Y. Hilton is out for multiple weeks with an undisclosed injury. T.Y. is old. His grandmother recognized that he can't play anymore. So clearly all those things leading together that T.Y. just needs to pass that dwindling torch off to Michael Pittman so he can just run with it. Let him go out with a nice season, make them have a run for the playoffs, see if they can make something of this team, which is quite good right now, and see if they can win. With T.Y. Hilton having his swan song, I'd love it. But Michael Pittman is going to be the focal point of this receiving game. And I just do not see a reason why a guy who is going ADP 123, the wide receiver 48, I don't know why you wouldn't draft this guy. And
so you're telling me he's a borderline wide receiver 4.
That's what the community wants to say. I'm going to say he's going to be an easy wide receiver 2.
Sure.
No, we talked about this a little bit on the last show. Also, if you haven't checked that out, I'm going to link it up there. But I think that it's no question that Pittman's going to be the focal point of this offense, especially now with the news that T.Y. is going to miss time.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that his upside is going to be there. I don't know if I have him in, the wider. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but he has definitely the upside to be a startable wide receiver as far as wide receiver 3, maybe a flex if you need it. And honestly, I mean, we don't know how that Colts offense is going to function. I mean, I figure Jonathan Taylor's going to get a lot of work. So,
I think as a show we're pretty high on Michael Pittman. We all agree he's a guy who is being slept on, partially because of how rookies performed last season, where your standard rookie seasons looked bad compared to how guys like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins all did last year.
Yeah.
Where everyone was like, "This is what rookies do now,"
yeah.
and that's just that's apparently just the new normal. And then once they disappoint this year, everyone's like, "Oh, that's right, they're rookies."
Yeah. So when you look at guys like Jamar Chase that are going ahead of him, way ahead of him,
yeah,
it's just I'll pass. It'll take this new second-year breakout, which is the thing now. That's what happens. The breakout percentage for these second-year receivers that go high and are near focal points of the offense is just amazing. And looking back at it, when Wentz was having his MVP type season, his main target was Alshon Jeffrey, who got 120 targets and 9 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't think it's out of the realm possibility to say that Michael Pittman can be as good, if not better, than Alshon Jeffrey when he was on the Eagles.
No, I could see that because people might think that's a bold praise, but Alshon was just an above average receiver.
Yeah.
Who was hampered by injuries for a lot of his career. But I think the biggest reason that I like that comp is because we know the Colts are a running team. But we also know that Wentz likes to focus on his number one target, and there isn't really anyone else super talented in the receiving core. They have no tight end to speak of.
Yep.
Their other receivers are just kind of a bunch of guys. I don't see why this couldn't end up just being the Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman show, where most of the team you don't want, but the running back's a superstar, and Michael Pittman ends up with strong wide receiver 2 numbers. Maybe his floor isn't always there because some weeks it's going to be a Jonathan Taylor week, but the target ceiling is there so that he can come in and get those those big boom games that pay off for people. I love the pick personally.
Yeah. I'm seeing him climb, and I want to make sure I get that out there. People who aren't surprised thinking they can get him super late anymore. His ADP is what it is right now, but it will not be at the end of this week.
So, because I'm just curious what your take is here. Obviously, you don't want to reach on him too much because you're killing the value. But how early are you willing to take Michael Pittman if you? Obviously you love him. We're all big fans. What round are you trying to take him in just to make sure you lock that up while still getting value?
So he has been going. I'm trying to think of ADP 123 off the top of my head. I know that's about in the 9th. Let me see.
Well,
that's
10. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, with the news that Ty is out, probably going high 8, low 7.
Sure, I could see that. That seems like a fair range for him.
Yeah, you're probably already locked up at most of your positions at that point, and he'll be your wide receiver 4 probably. And you can comfortably lock him up in the range you're locking up, like the okay tight ends, the quarterbacks probably have just all gone. Like, you're not passing up any elite talent.
For comparison's sake, just like who you'd be bumping him up to be competing with, like Visca, Fuller, Jarvis Landry, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I love Visca too, and I think Visca is about at his price. And when I look at Pittman next to Visca, the Colts are way better.
Yeah.
Wentz should be like Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like he's it just yet. So I'd give the nod to Wentz with his old quarterback, with old OC.
Coach.
Like, I can just see an easier path to fantasy success for Pittman over Visca.
Sure. All right, Frankie, tell us about why you are circling back around on Najee Harris. Why do you like him more than you did before?
Well, initially to start the year, before the Boom Show, if you haven't watched that, also go watch that. I was a little bit cooler on him because I don't typically like rookie running backs a lot.
Frankie, if I recall, you were a little cool on him in the Boom Show.
Anyways, I've kind of just taken a step back to look at what Najee could be in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and I can understand why the people are skeptical. The casual players, again, similar to myself and how I used to be. You look at the guys like Aaron Jones.
2 months ago?
Yeah. Guys like Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb are there. And, I probably wouldn't pick Najee over them. But at the back of the first round, I'm thinking, this rookie could be better than some of these guys that you're getting back here, like Eckler, Taylor, guys like that, Mixon. And, the casual player might think the same thing. It's kind of mind-boggling to me that you can get a guy who's, they're talking about getting, 20 touches a game as possibly your RB2 because he's going.
Who, Dave Montgomery?
I don't get the joke.
Well, because Dave Montgomery has had plenty of talk this season from Nagy about how he's going to be a 20 touch a game running back.
Oh, yeah. But
and you can get him as your RB2 in the second round.
No, Najee is going. He has an ADP of 15, which that's going towards the middle of the second. And I'm just that just perplexes me. How a guy who's going to get so much volume, as not only a guy who's going to get high volume on the ground, he's going to get a lot of volume through the air too. And, the Steelers, we saw their offensive line last year, kind of have its woes. And I think that they need to change up the way that their offense works in general. Like, they can't just play, we're going to throw the ball down the field and hope that Diontae or Chase Claypool will catch it for a long touchdown. If we look at the Steelers historically, when Le'Veon Bell was there was probably when the Steelers were the best at fantasy, with him and Antonio Brown as the tandem.
Yeah.
Because they weren't one-dimensional. I think Najee, especially with the high draft capital they, invested in him, and also the way they've been talking about him and what we've seen in, camp and preseason, he's the next Le'Veon Bell for them. Maybe not the ceiling, but he's going to be that guy that gives them that second dimension that they are desperately needing on offense. They ranked dead last in the league for rushing last year. I don't know if you guys know this.
I did.
1,300 yards total.
Yeah, it's almost like James Conner was very mediocre and people were overhyping him.
I just think that the volume upside that he presents in the second round is just, you can't pass up on it. It's almost like, so, I mean, look at today in the second round. Saquon fell into the second.
Yes.
You're not going to pass up him there, and he's also another guy who's extremely talented and is going to be high volume.
Yes, much to my chagrin, I ended up with the same running backs that I had in a lot of leagues last year.
Oh, yeah, you drafted him.
Yeah, I drafted.
But
I ended up with Saquon and Eckler, and I was like, oh, no, it's happening again.
So, as bad as the Giants were last year, you still picked the guy who's going to be leading their rushing attack. The Steelers are a better team. And Najee, I mean, he's not going to be missing time to my knowledge. Saquon could possibly miss week 1. They're both a very similar situation where they're going to be high-volume guys going... Well, maybe Saquon's going later in the first, but... I just don't see why Najee is so far down boards. Maybe it's because he's the unknown commodity, but I I'm willing to take that risk if nobody else is.
Well, so to me, Najee is down boards because he's a volume play. He's Joe Mixon on the Steelers. Because the Steelers did have a terrible offensive line last season. They fired all of them, or they retired. So, their bad offensive line got worse, potentially. Now they're playing those guys back. They didn't sign any notable offensive linemen. They didn't draft any notable offensive linemen. So they're just playing guys that couldn't start over the guys they had last year. That's the downside. The upside is that, and we saw this with James Robinson, you can be a good running back on a bad team if you get volume, because you get enough touches and eventually you're going, you just need one to break off and you return value, or fall into the end zone and you return value. So he is a pure volume play, and also he looks like a very skilled running back. So that's the upside for him. While I don't agree that I would take him ahead of guys like Jonathan Taylor or Austin Eckler, I think where he slots in for me would be just ahead of Antonio Gibson, because Antonio Gibson starts to be the round where it's there's question marks with him, and there's question marks about his volume, both I guess rushing volume and passing volume questions. Whereas Najee should be a flirting with 300 touch running back. I assume you guys are both on the same page with that.
Yeah.
So that's how I view Najee. I love looking at him. If I'm in best ball, I take him a lot of them at the 11 or 12 spot, taking him in sort of a 1-2 punch at the turn, because he's great to pair with a guy like Eckler or Joe Mixon, or even pairing him with an elite wide receiver, because he gives you such a solid running back floor. That's really what I think he is. I think he's a floor play to anchor your team.
Fair. I do think it's just it. Starting this season, it was amazing to see how down and out people were on the Steelers as a whole. I remember there was a conversation we were having when we were talking about the 3 wide receivers, and it was basically just I guess we want Diontae, but everyone was just so down on the Steelers for what they did with the lack of line play.
Oh, I mean, I still only want Diontae.
Right. But you weren't even excited about it, and as we'll find out soon, you're a little more excited about it.
Listen, but when we were around the draft time, we were having these discussions, it was more emotional response and less statistical response.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is but this was also in the early stages when usually the more casual players aren't drafting or doing anything. This was just the so-called sharps were just out on the Steelers, and now drafts are here and everyone's just yay Steelers. So I want to take a step back and make sure, is it because the Steelers know what to do with these quality talents? Is it because Big Ben's on a diet and taking the season seriously?
I mean, Big Ben did come in looking fine. No, I mean,
someone clipped that, by the way.
I can't speak for Najee. I'm still kind of lukewarm on Najee. I don't know if I'd push him into the potential first round, but I just think that there are volume plays in the Steelers, and the Steelers still have a Hall of Famer at quarterback. They still have Mike Tomlin, and I think that similar to the Colts, there's going to be a couple players you really want in the Steelers, and then a couple players that might as well not exist in fantasy. Frankie, I mean, is that based? I mean, what's your ceiling for Najee Harris? Obviously, you expect him to have some room to go up.
I am gonna. You can quote me on this. I think he's gonna be a top 10 running back. I think his absolute ceiling is probably.
So he's going as the running back 12 right now. He's going to go up 2 spots?
I would say,
what about top 8? You think top 8?
Measured response, as always,
top 8,
Frankie.
I could see him going top 8.
I'm gonna make you make a take here. All right, so him or Chubb?
Chubb is the running back 8 right now.
Who am I drafting?
Yeah, I'm just saying, you taking him or Chubb?
Chubb is the running back 8 right now.
I know you're taking Aaron Jones.
I'm taking Chubb.
Okay.
So he's your running back 9 then. Him or Jonathan Taylor?
Him, 100%.
Okay.
All right. So Frankie has a running back 9.
Him or Saquon Barkley? You're not getting you cannot stack them, so don't try and sneak that answer in there, because technically yes, you probably could in some drafts, but I'm just saying you're getting
Saquon
one.
Barkley went at 6 in this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna roll dice, or I'm gonna take Najee.
All right.
That's fair. Honestly, I would just because of Saquon's injury concerns and Najee's guaranteed volume, I would consider Najee over Saquon. I think that they are on equally trash teams. So
yeah, because like I said, I think the only thing that's really holding him back is that line, and we've seen lines before just kind of gel and figure it out, and if the coaching can get it right, you can like.
I mean, that is a possibility. Yeah. Like these guys could have just not made it onto the field because of talent issues, but maybe now they're all out there full off-season practicing. The Steelers are obviously a franchise with a lot of longevity at the coaching positions. They've always managed to figure out a way to get it done. I'm not ruling it out that Tomlin just figures out how to make this offensive line work.
Addition by subtraction.
Right, that's what I'm saying is like if this line can figure it out, I think he unlocks a ceiling that could maybe push him into the top 5.
No, sure. I'm willing to be wrong on Najee Harris.
All right, what do you got for us, Ian?
All right, you know what? I'm just going to follow it up and talk about. I was going to talk about my another AFC North player, but I'll go ahead and just stick with the Steelers here, seeing as we're already on that subject. Diontae Johnson needs to be on everyone's team, always, forever.
Also, the only other person you want to own in this offense
roster, but yes,
sure.
Frankie, you gotta work out the old school lingo. It's not own, it's roster. It's 2021. We're better than that.
Yeah.
But yes, Diontae Johnson is the only other person, aside from spot starts from Big Ben if I'm streaming, the only other person on this team that I have any interest in rostering and redraft this year, because I think the ceiling for him is enormous, and everyone's just writing it off because Diontae Johnson drops balls. Like, oh no. He drops balls. You know who else drops balls? DK Metcalf. Tyreek Hill. Do we care about that? No. It's going to be similar to the mid-round episode because I just talked about this, but I'm circling back around here to talk about it again because and as you brought up, I wasn't sure how to feel about Diontae. It wasn't because of the drops. It was because I didn't trust the Steelers' offense at all. Right. But I wasn't sure how to feel about Diontae Johnson back in May and June, before I had really done any sort of, digging into the NFL as a whole on 2021. But as I started statting out teams and planning out what I expect from players, and the more I looked at the Steelers, the more I was like, okay, well, Juju's he might as well not be here. He's not a factor in this equation. He's gonna get some catches, but it's not going to be, the Steelers aren't going to be good enough as far as I'm projecting them out for it to matter. He's just gonna kind of, it sucks to say that I think Juju's a great player, seems like a great guy, but I don't think he's going to really be a factor this season for fantasy. Yeah. Claypool, I'm not really worried about him. He's probably going to be good long term. I don't think he's going to have a big role in the offense this season. I just see him kind of, being a discount Mike Wallace of old. But Diontae Johnson's I just discussed this on the mid-round show. Go watch it if you haven't watched it. He's a target monster. This guy gets so many passes. And typically when we see people get this volume of passes, worst case scenario, they're Keenan Allen and you're flirting with the, top 12. Best case scenario, they're Keenan Allen and they score some touchdowns also and they're the wide receiver 3. Like, his comp for me is literally just Keenan Allen because they do almost the same thing. Lots of targets, kind of short, A-dot. So he catches them close to the line of scrimmage. But he's so talented at making people miss, and he's so he's just so good at catching the ball in space. And yes, he drops some of them because he's going across the middle of the field, and sometimes he catches the ball and gets lit up by a linebacker. And I would challenge any of you to go do what he does and only have 12 drops. But the fact that he only drops that that amount of them with the routes that he typically runs is amazing in my opinion. Because this guy is just hanging his body out there sometimes. But he can make people miss. He can do plenty of work after the catch. And I think his floor is what cements him as a must-have on my teams this season for me, because his floor is like wide receiver 18 probably to me. And his upside is legitimately wide receiver 3. Let's pretend here for a moment that he gets 144 targets again. Exactly what he had last season. Which is not factoring in the games that he missed. He should have had more targets than that if he didn't keep getting hit with random one-off injuries that took him out of a game and then he was back next week. But let's pretend he doesn't get any more targets than he got. And he gets 144 targets and he goes out there and puts up, 1,050 yards, but he finds the end zone 11 times. He is a league-winning player. He is a guy who's going in the 5th round who is capable of vaulting into the truly elite of wide receivers. And like I say, it relies on some extreme touchdown positive regression for him. He has to have an outlier season. But we've literally seen it happen. Keenan Allen's done it. It's the big reason that everyone keeps coming back around and drafting Keenan Allen. Sometimes in the high second round to all the way down to high third round. But it's why his draft position is where it is, because everyone knows that his floor is one of the best in football, and he has the ability to jump into the top 5 wide receivers. I just don't see the downside here. He gets more targets than almost anyone in football.
Yeah, so I have spoken about him as well. Same thing I spoke about in our mid-round episode, why I like him so much. I think he's a great value, and he's somebody that, if you're subscribing to the heavy running back strategy, you can get somebody who's a legit high-end 2, low-end 1, just like Keenan Allen is every single year. You can get this guy to anchor your wide receiver position along with guys who receiver I'll be talking about a little later, who's a pairing I've seen myself get quite a few times, and I'm always happy when I see it. It does feel like it's getting harder and harder to take Diontae. It's probably because I'm in a lot of leagues with the both of you, and we all have the same feeling on him. So it's usually a race to the top to see who, game of chicken, who's the first one to say I got to take him now. But like I said, I agree with basically all your takes. The only thing I'm thinking is I also think that Chase Claypool is a threat in this offense, and I think that's kind of the key for him is if Claypool's touchdowns come down, which probably they should, but I still see a second year breakout for him. But I also see a reason where if Big Ben's taking this seriously and he's really trying to get everything he can get out of this defense and this just team and push them into the playoffs, I could see Big Ben returning to form, just chucking the ball a whole bunch and making his
just kind of doing what Big Ben does.
Doing what Big Ben does and supporting 2 quality receivers.
I mean, Big Ben has been on record saying that his elbow feels better than it has in years, basically, because not ACL. Tommy John's.
So
Tommy John's surgery or whatever he had is better. That is it actually makes your elbow stronger now, apparently.
So let me just say this. I mean, I really like Diontae Johnson. He's number 1 on this team, 100%. I don't think he's going to see 144 targets again. I think that Chase Claypool will wait until a little bit. I think the main thing for me is the last player we talked about, Najee Harris. He's going to get more receiving volume than James Conner did. He's going to eat not a lot of those targets, but I really like Diontae. I think you're getting him at a tremendous value where he's going. But I don't think you can expect the same ceiling over, what we saw last year. Well, I mean, last year was just a weird year in general. I think, again, he's, like he said, it's a race to the top who's picking him, where he's going. That's it.
I don't I guess have a lot of concerns with his volume coming down because he missed those games and because it's a 17-game season. I think overall it's all going to balance out for him to get roughly the same volume he got last year on a per-game basis at least. So, and maybe you're right with Claypool. I guess my reason for not liking Claypool as much and why I'm not really worried about him in the offense is we did see him trend towards being less valuable over the second half of last year. Typically, what happens over the back half of the year is a indicator of what is going to happen in the future. I guess that's my reason for predicting it like I am. But
yeah,
if I'm wrong on Claypool, I'm wrong on Claypool.
Right, and I also think Claypool coming out and playing well and being that clear number 2 for them helps Diontae because it keeps the offense on the field.
Sure.
You don't want to see him taking those touchdowns away from Diontae, but you do want to see that, converting third downs and shit like that, moving the ball down the field. Those are all good for your team. That's why I usually try and shy away from wide receivers on bad teams because they can come down with two nice catches and the defense, then all of a sudden the offense stalls out and your guy's sitting on the bench.
So who do you want to talk about for your second guy, Vital? You got 2 more here.
Well, let's keep the train going with people we've already talked about before I get to my other player that I haven't talked about yet this season.
Tyler Lockett.
Yes. No. Never, ever, ever. I don't know why. But I'm going to go ahead with a guy that has there's a lot of controversy around him. He's very polarizing in the community right now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You can go out there and watch 20 videos about the top round running backs. There are plenty of people who say he's undervalued. There's plenty of people who say he's overvalued. There's some people who say he's not that good. There's some people who say that last year was so fluky. I am going to go ahead and say that there were definitely some eye-openers about last year that we were definitely overvaluing him, but I mean, it's hard to overvalue a running back when he goes in the first round. Pat Mahomes handpicks him. He was just coming off that off the team with Joe Burrow that was just lighting up the college football scene.
Sure.
So we're now a year removed and a Le'Veon Bell removed. This is a Chiefs offensive line that is retooled completely. They were mid-pack last year. They're looking to be top 10 this year based on...
I mean, a couple big injuries made them look bottom of the pack in the Super Bowl, too.
Speaking of bottom of the pack, they did rank 31st in like run blocking wins. Basically, a new stat that ESPN started tracking about like how their offensive linemen were winning their battles against the guys they had to block. They were dead last in that. So when you take a team that can throw very well and they're not run blocking very well, they're obviously just going to lean on Pat Mahomes, who is, as we just saw, NFL ranked him as the number one player. I just see that this offense, it's never going to slow down. This offense is just going to keep on chugging. They're
As is the Andy Reid way.
Exactly. And we already know they were having troubles in the red zone. You saw it both with Le'Veon Bell. You saw it with Clyde Edwards. He wasn't getting the red zone looks, but that was due to another running back coming in to supplant him and him getting injured at the end of the year. So I think if they want to be a more whole team and they want to make another run at trying to get another ring, they're going to need to clean up that red zone efficiency because they can't just rely. I mean, actually, they can rely on Tyreek Hill just running it in for 60 yards because they keep doing it. But Tyreek's a little banged up. Travis Kelce's another year older. Andy Reid loves his running backs. So where he's going right now, he is the running back 14 going in the 22nd ADP. So another reason I love him is
22nd ADP.
The 22nd.
It's an awkward way to say that.
Sticking with it. The 22nd ADP means that you can
Sprite, please, your largest.
Which means that he is going as the third to last pick in the second round. Which means if you're the guy who drafted Dalvin Cook, Kamara, Zeke, one of these just stud running backs, you can take him with your second pick or maybe even the third pick if he drops far enough in your draft because you don't have people who aren't homering on him or anything like that. So you can pair him with a guy who's going to give you that great upside and floor in the beginning of the rounds and then still even pair them with a very solid wide receiver. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. You can go Kamara, CEH, Keenan Allen, and now your team's not reliant on CEH.
Sorry, was that Kenyon Allen?
Keenan Allen. Had a little air bubble there. So now your team is anchored both running back wise and wide receiver wise with elite talent. And if CEH isn't putting up RB, top 10 RB numbers, it's not killing you like it was last year. Because through the first 6 weeks, he was RB 11.
Yeah,
which not great when you drafted him RB 4 to RB 6 where he was going last year. But if you're drafting his RB 14, he's giving you exactly what you drafted. So all those things together, I think the Chiefs are just going to take a step forward, and they clearly didn't bring in anyone to try and fight for him for these targets, fight for carries and targets. So
yeah,
I just, like I said, I see a guy who's got talent, and he just had a bad year, and I think it was a fluke.
I love the Andy Reid history of good running backs point because I think that's the biggest selling point for me on why I believe in Clyde Edwards-Helaire this season. Andy Reid has basically never had a bad running back in fantasy.
Yeah, he like Charmandrick West.
Yeah, but like even he had some good games under Reid in his system. Like Reid consistently uses, he's one of the best offensive minds in the game, and he consistently uses all the parts of the Buffalo, that Buffalo being his offense, to score lots of actual points and fantasy points. I do think that Clyde is a value at where he's going, and I do love that if you have a top 3 pick, you can easily pair a CEH, a Dalvin, a Kamara with Clyde because I think that's potentially a dangerous duo. I also understand why he's going down where he is, but like, yeah, I mean, if I'm in the back half of the second, he's easily someone I am looking at grabbing. Basically, if Calvin Ridley's not there, I'm trying to grab him. Yeah. I like him more. I like him more than Antonio Gibson just because of the strength of the offense. I think honestly.
I think the main thing for me is like we're saying all the same things that we said about him last year, but we were saying those things at pick, like you said, 4 through 6. But now we're saying all the same things. And he's going a whole round later.
He's going at the 22nd ADP.
Well, no, he's going a round and a half later because he was going at the top of the first. Now he's going at the bottom of the second.
Yeah, it's just mind-blowing to me that like, you compare him with a guy like Kamara or a Cook or whoever you take it for. But
I mean, the ADP,
I don't get it.
Again. The ADP decrease is it's an emotional response from fantasy managers.
Yeah.
It's a sour taste in their mouth because they drafted him so high and he let them down.
Yeah.
So, like, take advantage of that sour taste and get a guy who has a lot of upside.
Yeah, like I said, just think about your team right now. If you're sitting there with Kamara, CEH, and David Montgomery, I don't think you're going to be too sad with your running backs.
Yeah, like just if it's hard to draft CEH, just close your eyes. Pretend that he doesn't have a name, and you're just drafting the Kansas City Chiefs starting running back with no other competition.
Yeah, who's head coached by Andy Reid.
Yes.
Like, all those things together, you're like, I want that.
Yeah.
Almost every year you want that.
Yes. All right, Frankie, what's your second guy here?
Well, Robert Woods is.
Bob Woods. You're stealing my guy from last year.
He's one of the safest
Bobby Woods.
floors in receiving.
I love him.
Ever.
I will never forget the conversation we had the first year we lived in this apartment on that balcony where Ian told me that Robert Woods was not a good receiver. I will never forget
That's
that.
not what he said. We'll get back to that later. But over the past 3 seasons, Robert Woods has outperformed.
That is paraphrasing, but
Robert Woods has outperformed his ADP every single time. Wide receiver 10, wide receiver 17, wide receiver 13. Jared Goff steps out of the picture. I hate Jared Goff. Sidebar, I remember this time in Vegas, this guy was trying to tell me that Jared Goff was a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. We're not going to get into that.
He is.
Anyways, in steps Matt Stafford, a guy I
sarcasm.
like a lot, a guy who, I would see you guys both hard-pressed to argue that the quality of target's going to go up. It's going to be interesting to see what Stafford's output looks like on a team that actually has a defense. Shout out to the Detroit Lions.
Well, no, because it's the output doesn't matter. The Rams throw a ton, even though they have a good defense.
Yeah, like when you look at it, it's literally just went out and grabbed Jared Goff with experience and is just better.
I don't think Woods' numbers are going to jump tremendously, but I don't think they need to, and that's not why I'm picking him as one of my stamps. I'm picking him as almost the epitome of consistency as far as wide receiver position goes.
I'd be concerned if you were picking him because his numbers were dropping.
He's not going to break.
No. I said jump, not drop.
Oh, I think you said his numbers.
Oh, no. So I think he's going to.
I was like, odd case for arguing success, but I'm here for it.
If he gets at least a little bit of a bump, just because of, the quality of target's going to go up. 90+ receptions, 1,000 yards.
Sure.
He's done both of those multiple times in his career. The Rams' offense are capable of supporting 2 receivers, as another guy we're going to talk about later. As both of those people have been in.
Way to completely miss the whole burying the lead thing, Frankie.
Spoiling, God.
We're talking about Van Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
But
Tyler Higbee, actually.
both of those guys have been in the top 11 for receptions and top 20 since 2019, as far as receiving yards go. My main concern is the TD volume. And I'm saying concerned lightly because, again, I'm not projecting him to have a huge numbers increase. But if he does, I'm not mad about it. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of game script they run with Akers out and, Henderson stepping in. I mean, obviously Akers, it sucks to see his season be done. But
yes.
Henderson, I think, is a solid running back where he's going. But, again, this team is a team that likes to throw the football a lot, no matter how much they like the run. And I don't think they're going to abandon the run since I know about Todd Gurley and they have Stafford coming in, a guy who, is like to throw the football in his career. But, Woods has never really been a deep ball guy. He's always been out of the slot, just he's never been a touchdown volume guy is what I'm trying to say.
Right. He is the model of hyper efficiency. I almost say consistency and efficiency at the same time. Consistency. But no, he is just so consistent at being that, like a Keenan Allen, a high 2, low 1, who just people keep looking over every year, but yet Keenan Allen's going at the top of the 3rd, back of the 2nd, whereas Bob Woods is in the 4th.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of similar to Keenan Allen. The last thing I want to say is he's going at the start of the 4th round.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you can pair with 2, maybe 3 running backs. Maybe even pair him with another elite wide receiver like Allen Robinson, and you have a very safe floor there as far as your team goes that you can build upside around.
So I was talking. I'm going to try and just condense my Rams receiver take because it's going to sound the same for both of them for the most part. But I love Rams receivers this season for the sole reason of Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback in the league, maybe top 7, and people are ignoring that because he's been on the dumpster fire Lions for his entire career. And if you haven't been in fantasy for a long time, you forget the days where he was actually a top 5 quarterback. Because he used to be, I mean, it was back in the Megatron days, but he was a sought-after commodity because of the touchdown volume and the amount of passes he threw. And, but like as recent as 2 years ago, he was looking like he was having a resurgent elite season, and then he got hurt. This Rams team is a really good offensive line. They have one of the best receiving cores in the league. Sean McVay is a top 5 head coach. They have a top 5 defense. Like I don't see. I mean, I was having this discussion with some of the guys at work, and they were all down on Stafford. I was like, he is legitimately a dark horse pick for 50 touchdowns. If I'm putting a bet down in Vegas today for a guy who could throw 50 touchdowns this season, it's Stafford. Because he's going to have good odds because no one believes that he can do it anymore, and he's in an offense that regularly throws for over 550 attempts. He has great receivers. He's a great quarterback. Like, the stars are aligning here for Stafford to have like a borderline MVP season. Maybe it's a straight up MVP season, and everyone's pretending like it's ho-hum old school Matthew Stafford on the Lions with no targets.
Megatron aside,
like,
he probably has.
Like, I don't know who I like more. The fact that the Rams quarterback got a huge bump, or the fact that Stafford got, like, because they both got a massive production increase here. Like, Stafford has the best receivers he's played with since Megatron.
Oh, I was going to say that he probably basically splits Megatron in two, so now he has two players that are...
I mean, no, you can add Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods together and they aren't Megatron.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, he has, Megatron talent.
I think the upside is more that they are both, B plus A minus receivers, and Tyler Higbee's not bad either. And it's going to be really hard to stop this Rams offense.
Oh, what I'm saying is you're basically splitting Megatron where you're throwing to one guy as opposed to now you're throwing to three guys who can catch the ball instead of one.
Yeah. All right. I'll grab my last guy here. I'm going back to the AFC North.
I'm shocked.
Sorry.
I'm surprised.
All three of my guys are from I just realized this now. All three of my guys are AFC North players. All right. Well, I'm huh? Yeah, I am just an AFC North fan. Love all those teams. I actually do love all those teams for fantasy purposes. But T. Higgins. What do I have to say about T. Higgins that I haven't already said, other than he's another guy you should be drafting a lot. The offense is basically the same that it was last year. Like, almost carbon copy the same. The offensive line's a little bit better. Joe Mixon's healthy. And, Burrow's coming back from an injury. Burrow's looked okay so far. I don't really see the downside with T. Higgins. He is a guy who is going 2 to 4 rounds later than some of his counterparts that he was drafted with. I mean, you can get him in the 6th round. Justin Jefferson's going in the 2nd. Despite that difference, I don't think that the talent gulf between them is that big. And the production gulf honestly probably supports T. Higgins more than it supports Jefferson, because the Vikings don't throw that much. Yet we're looking at a guy who was in a 640 attempt on pace. They were going for 640 attempts last season. We are looking at a guy who's going to catch at least some of those. Like he's probably going to be the focal point. Everyone's anointing Jamar Chase as the new hotness before he's even taken a snap in the actual NFL. Meanwhile, T. Higgins actually already had a productive season. A year to gel with Burrow. AJ Green's gone. I don't understand why people aren't more in on T. I know Jamar Chase is the fun thing to draft, but like, he shouldn't be going ahead of Higgins. Higgins is legitimately, and I'm kind of repeating my argument with Diontae Johnson here, but like, his target ceiling isn't quite the same as Johnson's, but his depth of target is deeper. He is a consistent red zone threat, which is something that Diontae Johnson doesn't have. Like, the argument is similar but different, because he's a guy who could threaten for double-digit touchdowns, threaten for 1,200, 1,300 yards, especially with AJ Green off the team now. He can just step into that role as being the new dominant red zone threat on this Bengals team with no tight end to speak of, with a kind of banged up Jamar Chase who's been making bad drops in practice. I know I said drops don't matter, but I'm sorry. If you're a rookie wide receiver and you are dropping wide open passes in practice, that's at least a case of the yips.
Yeah, I think that,
like, you can get over that But in the meantime, while you're trying to get over that, Burrow's going to throw to the guy who is catching things. Like, it's not like Jamar Chase is the only show in town. Tyler Boyd's still here too, but like he's just going to keep doing the consistent, slot receiver Tyler Boyd thing.
Yep.
T. Higgins is another guy that I truly believe, if the stars align for him, he has top 10 wide receiver upside, because the volume combined with the amount that he saw usage in the red zone last year points him towards being a guy who could just have a truly elite season. And it's not even like that might be an outlier for him. That could just be who he is. Because that is the receiver he was drafted to be. That's the receiver that his talent level suggests he is. I think that T. Higgins is an excellent, especially if you went and grabbed like an Allen Robinson in the 3rd round, and you already have some safety on your team. I think T. Higgins is an excellent guy to grab. I mean, I've been grabbing him in the 4th round a lot just to go ahead and just lock him up early and then grab Diontae Johnson in the 5th, pair him with Johnson, get the safety of Johnson and the upside of Higgins, and just rock with that, because I think they could both be explosive receivers this season. Just absolutely dominate the competition. The downside to Higgins is his schedule looks kind of rough. But we know that strength of schedule kind of doesn't matter if you're an alpha wide receiver. And I truly believe that T. Higgins has the ability to capitalize on being an alpha. Like for him, it just comes down to, are you a Chase or a Higgins truther? But if you believe that Higgins has the ability, you should be on the Higgins train. Take him around earlier than where he's going, because even in the 4th round, as opposed to the 5th, he's still a huge discount.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird that with a lot of wide receivers that I've noticed, especially this year, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, people like that, we're seeing kind of the reverse of what we're seeing with running back, where people don't think oh, this is the new.
Devonta Smith going in the 10th round, but
what I'm saying, as far as like, people aren't as weary on them as they are with running backs, which doesn't make sense to me, because if you just look at the position as a whole, I mean, the upside is going to be more, I guess, prominent is the best word.
Yeah.
With running backs. Like Najee Harris. Why are people sketchy on him? His volume's crazy. Jamar Chase. We don't know what he's going to be at all. Yeah. Because there's so many mouths to feed in that offense, but yet he's still going in the 4th, 5th round. It doesn't make sense to me.
So I want to make one quick point, and then I'll kick it to you. We talked about this in the late round show, and the point that I talked about applies to Higgins. You want to target guys who, for them to capitalize on their upside, they need one thing to go right. And that's T. Higgins. T. Higgins needs to, capitalize on the volume that's going to be coming his way, because A.J. Green is gone, and that's all he needs to produce. We already know he's a skilled receiver. If he can make that one thing happen, he becomes a borderline elite receiver, in my opinion. Vitali.
Fair. So I am surprised when I see the fantasy community talking about who they like in this offense. Usually when they're talking about why you shouldn't go Higgins, I feel like their argument is not the greatest, where it's usually just Chase, Jamar Chase is here. Last time they drafted a guy this high, it was A.J. Green. It's like the team has changed so much since they drafted A.J. Green.
Yeah.
The head coaches are gone. Hugh Jackson's no longer there. Like, this team has a new identity. You can't always assume that just because they wear the same laundry, they're going to do the same thing they used to do. Like I said, if I'm searching for a reason why to be out on T. Higgins, it's just because if Jamar Chase is good.
Hugh Jackson was the Browns. Marvin Lewis.
They ended up being the same thing.
No, Marvin Lewis was much more successful than Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackson. Marvin Lewis made the playoffs every other year with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, made the playoffs and then left immediately. Like, they just punched their card, thank you for letting us come, and then just left immediately. But no, like, what I'm looking at,
they're happy to be here banner.
Exactly, like playoff bound, and they just throw a party like they won the Super Bowl. But with this offense, like, if I'm trying to paint a picture where to be realistic with how T. Higgins doesn't really perform, it's because Joe Burrow decides to spread it out, because Jamar Chase is good. But that means that basically nobody except for like Tyler Boyd returns value, because it means that they all basically just get peppered with targets. Joe Mixon, it stays healthy and takes a bunch and probably ends up returning his value. But that's really it. And I feel like we saw with Joe Burrow that he was looking for a guy, and I feel like he found it in T. Higgins. Like, I feel like his first read seems to be T. Higgins, and then if that doesn't work out, it ends up going to Tyler Boyd, who's the safe option. I can't imagine him going from one X receiver to another X receiver for his second read, whereas Tyler Boyd's usually coming across the middle. So for me, I think I think T. Higgins has all the things there. I think that's the only where I have is if this ball gets spread a little bit too much.
So just to touch on that, it's hard to spread it out too much when you have as many attempts as they had, and they're probably going to have that many attempts again because their defense is trash. I mean, if you cut 640, let's just say the exact same amount in 5 ways, that's almost 130 targets a person. That's pretty safe volume. I don't know. I don't see the downside with. I accept that there is risk associated with him. Yeah. I just personally don't think the risk is as serious as a lot of analysts are painting it out to be.
Yeah, like I think it's mostly I like T. Higgins, but he is climbing so fast that I end up seeing myself taking other players around him.
No, that's fair. That's
like Diontae.
I'm higher on him than a lot of people. I expect I'm ending up with him in a lot of leagues because of that, stance on him. But Vitaly, what's your final guy here?
My super secret, no one could totally guess.
Yes,
it.
the guy the other Rams receiver.
I can't remember him.
It's Van Jefferson.
It's Todd Gurley. No, Mr. Cooper Kupp. I was kind of waffling around who I wanted to. Maybe Chase.
It's Tutu at will.
Yeah, and then I just looked back and I was like, I love Bob Woods. Why don't I love Cooper Kupp even more? Another guy who it's like the past 2 years, he has been just as consistent, getting 124 plus targets in the past 2 seasons. You saw it. He had a more traditional wide receiver breakout. First 2 years, performing solidly, 5 or 6 touchdowns, 600 to 800 yards, which you typically see. Then year 3, he broke out with that season where he was like the wide receiver 1 for multiple weeks.
I had him that season. That's the only reason I remember that.
Yeah.
He was the wide receiver 2 right up until he got hurt.
I'm sorry. Wide receiver 2. Huge fall. But like you said, he put up like 10,
basically unrosterable.
I know. 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, and he was banged up that year. So when you look at it, he gets just a pure upgrade from Goff, a guy who likes to throw. Cam Akers is down. Gerald Everett's gone. So they need red zone production. Robert Woods hasn't been it for years. Cooper Kupp's the guy. So I can't see a reason why if Darrell Henderson, who I do like, but he's no Todd Gurley, when they get in the red zone, I can just see that Cooper Kupp's just going to get peppered in the red zone. So
I have to correct myself. It was 2018 where he was the wide receiver 2 until he got hurt because he played half the season. He was the wide receiver 2, and then he tore his ACL.
That season.
Yes.
I'm thinking of
2019 was a breakout year for him. Yes.
Yes. So okay, right on both sides. So
I was wrong
with the amount of targets you get, with the quality of this offense, with the lack of red zone targets for Stafford to throw to, I see no reason why he can't get another 130 targets, over 1,000 yards, and 8+ touchdowns. And I feel like with 8, I'm being conservative, just because he is that good and has that kind of nose for the end zone. So, like, once again, basically everything that Ian said and everything that you said about Robert Woods and the consistency and how great the Rams receivers are going to be, everything, but you get touchdowns. So when I'm evaluating, that's why I usually go Kupp before Woods, is because I'd rather get 10, 11, 12 touchdowns on my team for a guy I get in the 4th round. And like I said, because he's in the 4th round, I can go triple running back and then get a guy who can potentially be a top 10 wide receiver just easy. And that kind of production you get right there is ridiculous. The fact that when no one's the fact that he's being slept on, I blame the last year's rookie receivers. Like Justin Jefferson, I love, but he's a little bit too expensive this year for me. Yeah, he's old. He's only played 4 years. It makes no sense why. I feel like people are just going for the hype right now, and he's not the hypeness right now. It's all the second-year receivers. It's all the rookies. I've seen so many videos about whether Jamar Chase is going to break out. How good is he? But I haven't seen jack about Cooper Kupp, and he's going as the wide receiver 18. People are putting him as a middle 2, middling 2s are meh. If they come in, they get 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. I guess.
I have found it hard to draft Cooper Kupp this season because every time that I'm looking at drafting him, guys that I also like Diontae Johnson and T. Higgins or T.J. Hawkinson, who was almost a stamp of approval for me. They're all sitting there in the same range as him, and I'm I always end up taking one of those other 3.
Going for the hype.
I mean, it's kind of similar for me. I mean, not in that sense, but with Robert Woods, I mean, it's kind of the approach that we're taking to the Dallas Cowboys receivers now, where I'm just taking the cheapest one there. I don't have a problem taking Cooper Kupp.
I mean, the data suggests that you shouldn't just take the cheapest one, but
I mean, I think Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are going to have a pretty similar season. He's probably going to get more touchdowns.
I think if I had to put odds on it, teams that could produce 2 wide receivers who are both top 18 guys, it's like Cowboys and Rams and no one else.
Which is why I use those to comp. But
yeah, I can't really picture any other one that's going to do it.
Yeah, like maybe Tennessee if they're if they take carries away from Derrick Henry so they can throw it more, but like that. I mean, I think that they're like, especially if you truly believe that Stafford could have an outlier season. Someone has to if he goes for a Rodgers type season, 45, 50 touchdowns. Someone has to catch those. There's a reason Davante Adams is Davante Adams, because he catches Rodgers' touchdowns. If you're catching Stafford's touchdowns on the way to an MVP season, you're going to get a lot of touchdowns.
Yep. Can we just get into the last guy and kind of show this home?
Yeah. Frankie, take us home.
I mean, as much as I wanted to rush into the last guy, I'm not really going to talk your guys' ear off about Jerry Jeudy again. Thank God Teddy Bridgewater has been named the starting quarterback in Denver, as to none of our surprise, because Drew Lock sucks. But now that it's said and done, he gets a huge upgraded quarterback.
Yes.
I think is going to be the focal point of his offense.
He's clearly the biggest winner on that offense.
Well, yeah, I mean, Courtland Sutton's banged up going in. Noah Fant is apparently banged up going in. KJ Hamler is just, he's a young receiver that we haven't really seen anything out of. So who else is there? Jerry Jeudy's going to be the number one receiver on the top. It's 100%. And he got 113 targets as a rookie. He's a great route runner. Sure. He's got the speed and size of a wide receiver. It doesn't really make any sense for anybody else to be that guy. Despite Drew Lock's, terrible, quality of target, and I'm gonna blame him for a lot of those drops. Maybe not all of them, but he had 12 drops. He was still able to post a respectable rookie season. I mean, maybe not as much as Jefferson and Lamb, but
well, you can blame most of those drops on Drew Lock.
No.
Jerry Jeudy had one of the highest. I can't remember one or the highest. He had one of the highest uncatchable target rates last season.
Oh no! I'm saying I am blaming those on Drew Lock. I'm not saying all of them.
You said I don't know if I blame them on Drew. Like,
oh no! I was
straight up blaming them on Lock. Jerry Jeudy had one of the highest uncatchable target rates out of all wide receivers last season.
I was blaming all of them on Lock.
No. Go ahead and blame them on Lock.
But he's going to get a QB upgrade. You're going to get a heavy discount. I mean, he's going in the 7th right now. So, I mean, I don't really see a reason why you're getting a wide receiver 1 in the 7th round. Well, we'll say back 6, early 7th round. And he put up, respectable numbers with the terrible quality of target he got. And he's getting a better quarterback.
Sure. But because I know you've been a Jeudy fan for longer than I have, although we're both Jeudy fans at this point. Why don't you give first comments on this one?
So, Jerry Jeudy has the feet. He has the footwork of KJ Hamler. He has the talent of Courtland Sutton, if not more so, and he's got the size that you want at a receiver. Like, he is a guy that should break out. And the only thing that we were worried about was how does Courtland Sutton and him work together? Is he the 1B? Is he the 1A? Is he the clear one? Is it the 2? And Courtland Sutton seems like he's dealing with the yips. Though I've seen some videos, some catches he's been making, it looks like he's starting to work his way back, but I still project a slow start for Courtland. So with that in mind, if Teddy Bridgewater's trying to find who's going to be his one and Courtland's off to a slow start, it should be Jerry Jeudy. So for me, just the route running that this kid can do and the upgraded quarterback that he's got, just look last year what Robbie Anderson did with him. So just... Sure. Like, Robbie Anderson is nowhere near Jerry Jeudy in talent, and I think Jerry Jeudy can have a much better season.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that Bridgewater got the nod at quarterback, Jerry Jeudy shot up my wide receiver rankings because Bridgewater's preferred type of receiver is Jerry Jeudy. Like, if you could make the archetypal receiver for Bridgewater, it's basically just Jeudy. Elite route running, elite separation, pretty good hands. He's a guy you can hit in stride, and he can make the first defender miss and take it for 25 yards.
He's so fast.
That is exactly what Teddy Bridgewater likes to throw to because he's a above average game manager. Honestly, Courtland Sutton suffers, and I like Courtland Sutton a lot less than that Bridgewater is the quarterback. Because while Bridgewater can hit Sutton, he doesn't always go to Sutton, and we saw this with DJ Moore last year, where DJ Moore had his good games, but he also had some bad games because Teddy doesn't always look to him. Like Teddy always looks to the Jerry Jeudy type receiver. He is very proficient hitting that guy. Like his best throw is across the middle, 5 to 10 yards out, hitting a guy in stride. So I love this for Jeudy. I think Judy's another smash pick for me. I'm trying to get him a lot. Like I already was, but because I was betting that Bridgewater was going to get the job, but now that he already has officially, I've been trying to lock him up everywhere. He's been going honestly earlier than I've even been willing to grab him in some leagues. But like, oh man, he looks like he's going to be he could be a special player this year.
Yeah.
All right, well that'll do it for us here. Thanks for sticking with us through this one. It was a little bit of a longer episode as we walked you through some of our favorite players. Keep in mind, this is going to be the last episode of the preseason for us. So as we move into the regular season, we're going to be taking a break next week with no NFL games to speak of. But as we move into the regular season, we are going to start going into a 4-episode a week format again. So we'll be doing our favorite waiver wire ads, our weekend recap, and then our 2-part weekend countdown as we go through every NFL matchup and talk about the highs and lows of each of those. So if you haven't already subscribed to us, hit that notification bell. Now is the best time to do it so you find out exactly when our videos drop. Also, follow us on Twitter at the Fantasy 4-Pack, at Fantasy4P_Ian, at the Foon, at Senpai Koala. That's how you can find us on Twitter. We love to hear from you. That's probably the best place to reach out to us because at least Frank and I are basically.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of DMs today actually about helping with fantasy drafts, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we love to hear from you guys. We love the outreach. Interacting with you guys is how we help grow the channel, and the more the channel grows, the more we can interact with you guys, provide better content, provide more content, and help you guys win more, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, let us tell you why we don't like Lockett.
Yeah, if you got also as just an aside, if you guys have any draft screenshots that you want to get our opinions on, feel free to send them over. We are more than happy to give you our honest, unbiased opinion on how we like your draft.
Also, don't draft Tyler Lockett, please.
If I see Tyler Lockett on anyone's team,
F minus.
Can we make an F minus?
We control the grade.
I will make a graphic for it. Yes.
That'll do it for us here. I hope you guys all have excellent fantasy drafts, and I look forward to seeing you in the regular season.